Hello and welcome in our second JHP Art Session. Before we start, I just wanted to say it was wonderful to see your work last week, how you participated in a class and your creations. So I hope we can do the same this week. So I'm inviting you to post photos of your artwork. However, today's project, I'm quite aware, might take you a little bit longer than just up to 2 o'clock. So I'll be still able to answer in comments if you post it later or even over the week. It may not be straight away, but I will make sure look up for your artwork in our Facebook group. So the project I prepared for you today is something called Well-Being or Feel Good Color Wheel. And the difference between this color wheel and the standard color wheel, which you're probably familiar with. I've just got one here, so let me grab it. So the standard color wheel you may be familiar with. It's all about colors, how they sit in a color wheel and how they mix. The project we're doing is slightly different. It's built around our well-being. So the first difference is I'm going to ask you to pick up only the colors you like, the colors you feel connected to, and it's quite interesting that even when we ask children what their favorite colors are, they're pretty good with the answers straight away. They don't really hesitate. So we do have some kind of intuition-based color choice, which I would like you to tap into. So pick up the colors you want, the colors that make you feel good for some reason. You don't have to know the reason. That'll be the first difference between that handmade color wheel and the standard color wheel. And then the second difference is where I put descriptions here. Really can't see them. They're not descriptions of colors. They are descriptions of my feelings or my associations with the color or what the color is reminding me of. So I'm just going to give you examples. So for example, this one here, which is green with a very thick yellow paint, I put Van Gogh. Van Gogh is one of my favorite artists in terms of paint application, and this is very much kind of his paint way. A paint application which is thick and you can see the brush strokes. Another example here, I put, let me just find something interesting. I put forest on this one. So I'm not giving those colors name of the colors, I'm giving them my personal associations. And another creative twist to this is because we have very limited supplies and we are working with what we've got at home. I will be asking you to fill every section with different kind of supply, if possible. If not, that's fine. You can use the same art supply, let's say in 3 sections of the wheel and different one for rest of the sections. But here I use different art supply for each section, and that will be explained in the video. And the second creative twist, because there's never enough creative twists, is that I will show you in video, and there'll be titles with some comments telling you how to use those supplies in more creative ways. So it won't be just the plain application of the paint. It may be something like blending in a different way or mixing 2 different art supplies for one section. Okay, so let's get started. So here I want to show you what kind of supplies I'm using for each section of my color wheel. There are different supplies, and again, you will have to work with what you've got at home, what you can find, and be creative, because you can see here I'm using a piece of wool and I'm using a piece of magazine. So let's just go through each section and I'll show you what I'm using. Then you will see how I'm using it on each section. And some of them are quite straightforward. Some of them I may want to use them in more creative way. So starting from this point, here I'm just using standard watercolors. This one I'm using acrylic paint. I'm going to work with my 2 favorite colors, which is Prussian blue and yellow. If you don't have any acrylic paint, have a look if you've got any household paint leftovers, as long as it's not paint for metal or wood, which is oil based. Just look for paint that you would normally use for painting walls, which is water based, and it's safe to use and easy to wash if you happen to stain your clothes. So that's my another section. This one I decided to use a piece of wool, which I'm going to section and then glue small parts into this part of the wheel. This one I have just a standard wax kind of crayon. If you have any children in your household, you're probably likely to have something like that. This section is just a standard normal colored pencils. Again, go and have a look what your children have, if you have any in your house, in their school supplies. This section I decided to use the piece of magazine. I really love those colors of the feathers here, and what I will do, I'm just gonna have small pieces joined together randomly to fill that section. This one, that's an office supplies, a highlighter. Again, you may find it somewhere on the bottom of your drawer. This section is watercolor pencils, so slightly different than the standard colored pencils. Those ones react with water, and I will be working with water when I apply them. I just realized that next to each other I have very similar supplies, which is watercolor paints and watercolor pencils, and I'm just going to swap them because I don't want some kind of similar effects next to each other. So I'm just going to have highlighter here, and then I move that round. So think about, before you apply it, what kind of effect they will create on your wheel, and you may want to decide, like I've just done, move around the supplies. So that's your first part, deciding what goes where. And then I'm just going to film section by section, maybe not filling the full section. So I just want you to see how I applied or how I worked with that supply in more creative way. So it's not always going to be standard application. So if you ever worked with watercolor pencils, you would expect me to cover that and blend with water, which I will do. But then remember, you can use them dry as well. You can overlap the colors, you can draw shapes with them and then apply water, or you can dip the actual pencil in water and apply to a section of your color wheel. Now, you don't need to have 8 separate supplies for each section of the wheel. You may decide to do 2 in the same type of art supply. So for example, 2 in watercolor pencils, 2 in marker, 2 in something else that you have. So you have to decide about what you're using, what you have able to get hold of, and just be creative. You could be using a piece of fabric, lace, ribbons. It's really up to you, and I know you will find your way to fill that color wheel with colors that you like and the colors that you find relaxing and just basically nice looking at.